Les, you got us.
I got us.
All right. Les, we'll let you open up.
Oh yeah, I think that I know we're going to talk about the draft, but was going to start by letting former player a great legend in the game, Roman Great Gabriel, did pass away this week. So let his family know that we're thinking of him, his legacy, the impact he had in Los Angeles, not just in football, but just in life. So obviously, definitely a very fruitful life that we're going to miss Roman, and we're celebrating that as we speak.
All right. We'll open up the question, guys. Start with you, Sarah.
Hey, Sean and Les. I have a question for both of you. When you look at Kobe Turner's versatility, what decisions does that allow you to make, or things you can think about during the draft process as you think about how maybe you could replace Aaron Donald?
Go ahead, Les.
It'll be interesting. I can let Sean to discuss on the, let's call it, the nuances of versatility amongst being in a 3-4 base front, whether you're a nose tackle, 4-eye, 3 technique. I think big picture, probably, as we've said, I'll continue saying it, whatever we do in this draft, whoever we draft, it's probably pretty hard to say you're replacing Aaron Donald. But again, I know Sean, his staff are trying to figure out how to still, be a very impactful, frustrating defense to play against in ways other than just finding another Aaron Donald.
Yeah, Sarah, I think the best part about it is Kobe knows. We just want Kobe to be Kobe. And he does have some position flex across the front, whether we're in 3-down spacing or whether we're in some of our 4-down, nickel sub spacing. And so he can play in a bunch of different areas. That does give us some flexibility relative to the different types of players that we like, if maybe they're a little bit more specific in terms of where we envision them. So that's a real blessing for us. But he's come in here. He's done a great job. You can see he's already got a really great rapport with Gift Smith. We still have AC Carter here, who will do an awesome job, continuing to help with that defensive line. But Kobe Turner is a special human being that understands that the work works, and I'm excited about him continuing to naturally just progress and enjoy every day and just stack good days. And we are very fortunate to have him. And we will never, and Aaron Donald will never be replaced. We love him. We know that. And we just want the guys to be the best versions of themselves.
And then Sean, Puka and Cooper have both talked about the work they've done together during the offseason. What do you hope Puka takes from Cooper? Obviously, they spent a lot of time, last year together. But what do you hope he takes from Cooper as he gets ready for his second season?
Yeah, I think the best part is that they're positively pouring into one another. There's been a consistent humility throughout the course of Cooper's career. Puka has a natural humility as well, but I think just continuing to understand that, hey, this is a blessing. Let's just continue to let's go to work. Let's understand this work works. I think as important as anything is Cooper's feeling good. Sometimes there's things you can't control and that you can't control, and Cooper's feeling good. He's able to go through a rhythm and routine that's a little bit more consistent than with what he's had in previous years, to be able to set and develop that foundation and to be able to put his arm around Puka and have somebody like Cooper is a real blessing. But those guys, they've got a really cool relationship, and you can just see the respect and admiration that Puka has for Cooper, but also Cooper for Puka, and that's what we want here. Guys pouring into each other. So it's been great.
Thank you.
Stu.
With having a first round pick, especially at this stage of the pre-draft process, for both of you, how is the process different compared to, say, the pre-draft preparation of the previous 6 years?
Stu, it's probably common sense is really probably spending more intimate, more intentional time with a certain subset of players. And even in years past, even if you set aside a subset to say we probably should spend less time with these players, if one of them did slip to within striking distance, if we weren't picking in the first, you did, as Sean, you have Friday morning till probably 4 o'clock Pacific to maybe let's call it, be a little more intentional about, wait a minute, we weren't expecting this to occur. Let's now fast forward it. Let's cram for the exam. But that's really it. And I think the interesting thing about the first round is a lot of those players that get picked in the first round are for the most part, good football players, probably very good college football players. And the key with what we're trying to do now is within the nuance of our scheme, our needs, who fits us and who really doesn't. Sometimes the hard part about the first round is who not to pick, not necessarily who to pick, and actually also who's available when you do pick.
And then just as a follow-up to that, what does even just having that as an option, regardless of what you guys decide to do Thursday night, do for you guys as far as what you mentioned, addressing, those roster needs and things like that?
It definitely allows us to, let's call it if we call it a Thursday night caliber player to address one of those needs. And then sometimes I like to call it, you're not just filling the need, you're actually adding a human being that's going to make a significant, or hopefully, and your vision is to make a significant impact, to our collective.
Thank you.
Adam,
Hey guys, I'm curious, as we try to add to what was a playoff team last year with these 4 picks in the first 2 days of the draft, how do you balance looking for a player how do you balance deciding between a player who might have a clearer path to playing time in 2024 just based off of roster construction versus a prospect who may not have that clear path in 2024 but could have a bigger impact in 25, 26?
Go ahead, Les.
I think it's case by case, right? And I think in this, as we mentioned, a lot of those variables, that nuance of who to pick, who not to pick, right? Well, obviously there's need. And a lot of times you want to make sure though you do, if you call, as Stu said, fill a need, because you hear the word reach a lot. I think reach usually means you reach because you have a need. You actually fill a spot, but a year from now, do you still have a need? You got to ask yourself that question. It's subjective. It's case by case. And the other gets, right. We want to be successful. We want to be the best football we can be in 2024. And so, hey, can that player, what's Sean, his staff's vision for that player in 24? What's it moving forward and things like that. So it's all nuance. It's all case by case. And that's what you work through.
And sorry, were you going to say something, Sean?
No, it's a perfect answer. Nothing to add. JW Jordan, nothing to add.
I should explain that, right? In draft meetings, Sean, we had someone, he still consults with us, JW Jordan, and he was really, really good. In draft meetings, you get everyone together. We know we like to talk. We'd like to talk about, right, how we like this player, don't like that player, the superpowers, the kryptonites, and you go around the room and you're about 10 deep in discussing a player. You might ask JW Jordan, right, if he had anything to add, and he'd go, nothing to add. As Sean will say, most people will say nothing to add and then spend about the next 2 minutes adding.
Yes, he's the first person I've ever seen do that. You got anything to add? No. And then they say so much. I'm guilty of that as well. JW taught me, if you say nothing to add, that means you have nothing to add.
Somehow I added to that, Sean.
It was well said.
And then Les, how many first round grades do you have in this draft?
We don't grade by round. We really, if I kept it simple, it's really, I'll say this, we have a depth chart and what's the vision for the player, right, early. But really you're looking, hey, what do you think this player is going to be when he gets to the NFL, when he gets settled, when we develop him, all that? Where does he fit on the depth chart? And at that point, you make your decisions. So.
All right. Thank you.
Eric.
Can we see the depth chart?
It seems like that would be counterintuitive. Since we are competing against 31 others.
Thanks for doing this, guys.
Eric.
I had to ask. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. I have a two-parter for both of you. What's your evaluation of this wide receiver class, which is considered one of the deepest in years and could have a record number of guys go in the first round? And then the second one is, you guys have obviously been very good at finding productive players later in the rounds, whether it's Puka, Cooper, even Van Jefferson. Why have you been so successful doing that?
I'll open quickly, let Sean fill in some nuance. I can say it's interesting. We're picking 19, but like when you don't have a first rounder, I can say, Eric, there are some wide receivers that we kind of put in this pod that, you know what, they're probably not getting the 19. You know what I mean? So, and we may have a little less time to react if all of a sudden one of those guys falls the 18, but it is up at what we call the top of the draft, early in the draft. Pretty cool class of receivers. I'll let Sean fill in some nuance on finding that player who might not be drafted as early, but still can come in and contribute.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly deep, but here's what I think. I think Les said it perfectly earlier, Eric. You know, there's a vision that you need to have for these players, because I think they feel that vision. They feel that collective buy-in, not only from Les and his group, but from our coaching staff, from the rest of the organization, where there's a real investment to bring stuff to life that maybe they don't even see in themselves, but we do. And that's a powerful thing. And so what we've, you know, I think in a lot of instances, there's a lot made of what a great job Les and his group and working in coordination and collaboration with our coaching staff did last year. What was a good reminder is a lot of those decisions were, hey, these guys have to play because that's the situation that we're in. And what a great job they did, where sometimes we as coaches can get caught up. You don't really trust the guy yet, but having the patience to allow them to work through, you know, the inevitable growth, you know, that needs to exist and to occur. And so some of those guys got afforded opportunities that maybe others wouldn't have in previous years. What a cool reminder to use all 7 years as learning opportunities. And even though we do have a little bit more draft capital earlier on, there's going to be some big time players in this draft that contribute in later rounds. And hey, how good of a job can we do identifying our kinds of guys and the people that we have a vision for? That's not exclusive to just getting caught up in, all right, who are those top upper echelon guys, but there's a real fit. There's a real buy-in. There's something that we really like and respect about their game that fits into our ecosystem, you know, as Les would say. And we're looking forward to kind of letting that unfold. And I will say too, it's a really cool reflection of the amount of work that's been put in from Les, from his scouts, from their collective. And then when we get our coaches a little bit, you know, added to the mix, starting to dive in, it's a really cool process. But there's been a lot of work and there's a lot of trust on my end and our coaches' end and Les and his group.
Hey, Eric, I was going to ask you, Eric, have you met our good pal Dangling #Furry?
I have not.
I can spell it for you. Dangling. He's a Reddit pal of ours who I think on the other day on Reddit, he broke that we were going to trade up into the top 10.
Oh,
He said he had intimate sources in the building. So, you know, he's close to the program. We really like Dangling.
I'd really like to know who those sources are.
Here's the deal, though. He said we were going to take an OL. I'm like, man, he doesn't know Coach McVay.
One last quick one for you, Les. Because of the 7-on-7 and more guys are playing it all year round, are there more guys that kind of fit the mold that you're looking for because they have more reps?
Well, so, you know what? I could get in trouble for this, but I'm old school, Eric. So I'm a little less than on the 7-on-7 in that I think there's an element, if you play too much 7-on-7, you engineer this, let's call it skill without defenders who are going to tackle. So there's you can make it that's, let's call it false sense of confidence of what it's really like to play football when you're in pads, right? You're not in pads, so you move better. There's you may can run some routes into some zones that you would never run into if you had pads on based on the angles defender has to hit you. But to make your point, Eric, I do think probably young kids growing up, unlike when I grew up where maybe football season was football, and then if you could dribble a basketball, maybe you go play basketball, then you play baseball. You are getting a lot of kids now who can basically run routes pretty much year round.
Thank you.
Beat 'em.
I'm still trying to recover from dangling furry.
Nice. He's a really good dude.
Okay. I'll take your word
Is this
for it.
actually a real person?
Is it a real furry? That's what I want to know.
It's Les's alter ego.
Here's what I do know. I had our IT group, go to Reddit. Once they share a lot, I can say this, we got a lot of, let's call it millennial Gen Z. So they're deep into the Reddit world. And I said, hey, can you give me that cat's name? I'm not sure, I've never met Dangling, but didn't see a picture of him. I don't know what his mugshot is really.
I'm saying it's Gary's burner account.
I'm more worried by the furry part than the dangling part, but figure that out later. Either way,
There's a hashtag there, so
yeah, there is.
he's garnering followers as we speak.
No
If you
kidding.
follow someone on Reddit, not sure.
Well, if you can, he's getting them. Either one of you guys, last year you drafted a bunch of players, and 4 in particular made a really big impact on a playoff team immediately. And I remember Sean talking at the end of the year about how it wasn't only their skills, but also their attitude and the way they approached the game and the way they approached learning that made them able to contribute like that. And I'm just wondering if there's a way you can quantify what that was that Steve and Kobe and Byron and Puka have that maybe you can see in other players and chase that, or is that just one of the things that happens once you get in the building and you're immersed in the culture?
I do
ahead.
think,
I'll let
Greg,
you
we try to research that as best we can before they get here. I can say we have this. I've since termed it between last year and now, kind of a North Star. I call it in honor of Aaron Donald when he said, "Hey, I'll play beside anyone as long as they care." So we call it the care factor. And it's a lot of the person's intangibles, and how much of those intangibles lead to, or let's call it inspire, ignite, whatever, the player to do things behaviorally that show that they care about football. There's a lot of people in this building who care about football, and we'd like to partner with them. And so we try to figure that out. And it is really neat, Greg, because all of a sudden this is getting to a level of the video game that no one's ever been to, right? If we're playing Miss Pac-Man, this is the top. So you can be really good in college football, but you're never quite sure what happens when you get to this environment, because it is it's competitive. It's a fast moving ecosystem. So we definitely try to vet it. And it's really cool to see that when some of those players do, wow, they don't flinch. As Sean would say, they don't flinch, even though they're maybe younger, less experienced. And I'm sure Sean can elaborate too, because it's interesting. We talk a lot of times in the draft, Greg, that once we draft them, Sean and his staff will pretty much spend a lot of time with each of those players. A lot more time than I will ever spend over the next, 4 years once they do become a Ram.
Yeah, I think it's part of, some of the experiences that people have been through give you a better opportunity to project it. But the vetting, the feel for the human, I think there's some intuition, the love for the game, the understanding that a lot of these things are factors that can be controlled if you do have the mental toughness, the growth mindset, the understanding of how to apply it and be in atmospheres and environments where it's rewarded, it's continuously revisited. And, and I speak on a lot of that stuff because I can speak from times when it's been good and times when it's been bad for myself included. And so that has become an incredibly important thing that we try to identify, whether that be for anybody we onboard, coaches, players, new staff members, because I'm such a believer in you become the company you keep when you have like-minded people around that still have their own personalities that make the whole special. There's just a better way about navigating through the inevitable ebbs and flows that occur. And those people that can stay steady, that can really understand that, these setbacks, these are events, they're not identities, but they understand that the process is so important. And that's really what keeps a resilient approach. And Les talked about it. There was, I've been around a lot of guys that do it, but I haven't been around anybody that does it more in terms of Aaron Donald epitomizing. You guys hear us talk about this growth mindset, the work works, understanding that when we do have setbacks, those are truly opportunities for growth to really occur. And now what helps us get back on track? Going back to work, putting the time, the effort, the dedication in. And those are just things that you do. That's not, that's not your whole identity.
Right. And then going back to earlier about the defensive line, I mean, given who you did and did not sign in free agency, Aaron's retirement shortly thereafter, you have 4 picks, and obviously each 4 pretty high picks. Each one is its own circumstance. But how much would you like to get a defensive lineman who can play immediately, and how important would that be to the Rams?
It'd definitely be a net positive for the Rams.
Thank you.
What's your money on, Greg?
D-line all the way. Not that I would bet on anything. No.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, we'll keep you guessing.
Thanks, guys.
Jordan.
I will never recover from this press conference, I don't think. First question for Sean. Obviously when you were a position coach a while ago, you guys would work with the scouting staff and all of that through the draft process. But once you became a head coach, what was it like getting accustomed to the scouting calendar and the scouting language specifically in this building? And what was it like getting used to like the Les Snead scouting language in this building?
Well, I mean, where do you want me to start there? Here's the best part about Les and I's
Nothing to
relationship.
add, Sean. Nothing to add.
Yeah, that's what you want. I think the best part about it, Jordan, is there was an immediate rapport with the way that we saw the game when I went going back to even just the interview. It was obviously great with Kevin and Tony, but Les and I, the way that we saw the game was through a very similar lens. I've always respected, I respect so much the amount of work and film study and the way that he tries to understand the game from an all 22 lens. And then, okay, what does that mean for how we want to fit him in schematically? And he's done an incredible job because of our relationship of really, the amount of work that he does, but potting guys, within the framework of needs, but then also not overdrafting for a need that, is obvious, from the outside view. And so he's done a great job of, there's a lot of trust that exists that doesn't make me feel like I have to do anything other than be on the same page. I'm not going to have the amount of time that he and his group do. And that's part of, trusting the people that you're doing it with. But I think when you look back on 7 years, number one, there's an ability for us to be real honest with each other because we have a real relationship, that can withstand, good conversations that need to exist with anybody you have a real relationship with to try to figure out what's best for the collective, what's best for our football team, which we have never had any discrepancies on those types of things. And then being able to make sure that there's a respect for the other work that's been done, whether that be by his group or the coaches, and that inclusivity where everybody understands they're a part of it. And even if we might not draft a certain guy from a position of need, everybody understands the why behind it. But it's been so smooth and seamless. And I think it's only gotten better, Jordan. And I think that's one of the things that I know I can just speak for, how much I appreciate our relationship, but I'm really proud that it's only gotten better as we're going into year 8 now. And that's something that I certainly don't take for granted. And I think, the more that you have a little bit of a better understanding of how this works, you really cherish it.
Do you look at continuity? This is for both of you guys. Do you look at continuity as an advantage in that case? You guys are one of the few pairs in the NFL left that have been paired for this long.
Yeah, our relationship's only gotten better from my vantage point. Now, he might say I don't like him as much as I liked him year 1, but I sure like him a hell of a lot more every single year. Nothing to add, huh,
I
Les?
concur. I
And then-
intentionally was silent just for a couple of seconds to get everyone thinking, right? On the relationship part, right? I would call Sean a really good friend before a partner, at work per se. Definitely a really, really good friend. And like I said, we see the game very similarly and we care about the game very similarly. So it definitely works.
Last question for you. How do you feel about 19 in general? I mean, in terms of the placing of the pick and sort of its hierarchy in the range of potential outcomes for you guys?
It's probably a good metaphor for life. There's this element, you have this piece of real estate at 19, and you know what? There's a few pieces of real estate that may be a little less than 19 or earlier, and you're like, ooh, kind of envious of those or that, you know. And then there's that element of, wow, if this could happen at 19, this would be, you know, a good net positive for the Rams. And then there's always the let's move back. And maybe at that point in time, if I'm going to continue the real estate metaphor per se, maybe you get a chance to buy more pieces of real estate versus just one, and that would be one of the reasons why you would move back. A strategic advantage. You're thinking you can get someone that you like a little later, and also add another pick. But I think that's really the reality of 19. It is all in. I don't know if Gary, you've had your hand raised forever, and you've been the one to ask consistently, are we moving up or staying pat? And you really don't know, but I can honestly say that all three of those options are probably as real as it can get, and a reality for sure. And we're going to explore all three. Obviously, staying pat is one that I guess you control, but you definitely do not control who falls. So, but obviously, if you're gonna move up, that's a proactive attempt to strike from a distance per se. Maybe get an explosive play in the football world, and we'll see what happens and see if we move back or stay pat.
Thanks, guys.
Gary?
Hey, Sean, for you first, for all that you've accomplished in your tenure with the Rams, you've never had the opportunity to make a first round pick. So I'm just curious if that's been frustrating. And as you look to Thursday, if you're excited about having that possibly having that opportunity to put your stamp on a first round pick.
I've got all the texts Sean has sent me over the years about not having
zero frustration, because all of those decisions have been with guys that we thought made tremendous impacts. And then we moved back out of the first round, our second year, when we did actually have a first round pick. So no, it's exciting. And I think, like what Les talked about, it really hasn't been as different as maybe you guys think, because you always have to play the contingency plans, whether it's a move back or a move up. There was guys last year, like I told you guys, after, we were fortunate to come away with Steve. There was players we had identified, Les and his group and us, that we wanted to move up for. And we made some calls to see if that could happen. So there was a good amount of work done on those players that are, projected in the, the top half of the first round, or, the top skill players, and or top at whatever position it might be. And so I'm excited about, adding players that are our kinds of guys that we do have a vision for, and then really going to work with them. And so there's definitely there's a lot of good possibilities. There's a lot of contingency plans. If you said, are there certain things that I think we would all say that's a win-win if it comes out that way? Hell yeah. But that doesn't mean we're not going to feel good about other scenarios, because sometimes when you look back on it, those things that don't work out maybe the way you want them to end up being the biggest blessings in disguise, if you just make the most of whatever circumstance and situation that you have.
So no, you don't feel any pressure in terms of, if that does come up, to this is going to be your first one, and how that will be evaluated?
What the hell kind of question is that? There's a pressure is when you guys tell us that we're all in every year, huh? No pressure. Just a great opportunity to add a quality player that hopefully makes an impact. That is, if we do pick in the first round, Gary.
The fact that, you are the architect, or one of the architects of the offense with your assistants, the perception from the outside would be, now that you're getting this opportunity, you are going to go all in. You're not going to let an opportunity to draft an impact offensive player get by. How would you respond to that?
Why the hell did Peter Schrager put that out there? Here's what I would say. That is not an accurate assumption. Now, are you saying that I get excited about an offensive player? Yeah, but I get damn sure excited about a defensive player too, Gary. What the hell?
You know what, Gary, going back to JW Jordan, he would he would definitely say nothing to add, but there's times he would add that, you know, people who score touchdowns are important in this league. So just keep that in mind. And I think I've even said it this as we've gone through this together that Thursday night, whether you pick a offensive player or a defensive player, right? The vision's to be a net positive for the Rams, not necessarily looking at it from one side of the ball, right? Both sides complement each other and work together. And the Rams either win or lose on Sundays. It's never hey, the offense tied, the defense won, and special teams lost per se. It all compounds to one victory or loss.
And what are some of those texts that you received from Sean? What would be some of those texts? Can you share those?
You know
with
what? That was just a joke. So
You know the answer to that question. Hell no.
Change of pace, my last round here, but a kind of a change of pace since we both have you here. With the start of voluntary off-season workouts, Stetson Bennett, you had said was going to be participating. I'm assuming he has been participating so far. Just wanted to get your sense, Sean, of how that's gone so far. And for you both, with Stafford and Garoppolo and Stetson on the roster, would that preclude you from possibly picking a quarterback in the draft?
Yeah,
I
I
was gonna say, y'all know my relationship with Bo Nix's father. It's been well reported this week. That is,
I think you leave all options on the table. Stetson's been here, Gary. We're in phase 1. It's been just meetings and then lifting. So our ability to get out on the field with the players hasn't existed yet. That's the thing that's the most fun. But he's done a great job being engaged in the meetings. We've had a lot of individual meetings up to this point. I know Dave Ragone has really enjoyed his interaction with him throughout, the first 6 days, if you will, with Monday through Thursday last week, and then now being through 2 days this week. And so it's been good. He looks good. He's had a good look in his eye. He's been attentive in the meetings. And then I'm looking forward to next week to being able to get out on the grass with all of our players, and Stetson being one of them.
So aside from your joke, Les, or maybe it was a joke, would you, all options are on the table? That would not preclude you from taking a quarterback?
you're getting close to asking about that depth chart, Gary. It seems like that would be counterintuitive. It wasn't a joke. Bo's father and I were once teammates at Auburn, and as it was reported, I was maybe a graduate assistant when Patrick was, let's call it the full-time starter. But I do know this: Patrick Nix did come off the bench. What a play! We're on probation. It's the last game of the season. We're losing to Alabama. It's 4th and 10. Now, it's interesting. I'm not sure Terry Bowden really, some people said, did he really know it was 4th and 10? But he would say we were in no man's land. We're probably on about our 38 or their 38-yard line. Patrick Nix's first pass of the 93 season was basically a go ball to Frank Sanders to take the lead and the momentum in the Auburn-Alabama rivalry. And we finished the season 11-0. On probation, so didn't have to go probably get beat by Florida in the SEC championship. We can live forever undefeated.
Thanks very much.
All right, last one. We get you, Dennis.
Hi, Sean. Les, how you guys doing?
Doing good. How you doing,
Good.
Dennis?
This is a 2-part question. So the first part is, how do you gauge when a draft has been successful? And the second part is, what determines a prospect fitting into the Rams culture?
Go ahead, Les.
Go ahead, Sean. My bad.
Yeah, I think the success of the draft is definitely after the fact. You have goals and people that you identify that you want to come away with. So I certainly think you can feel really good about the direction, but the work begins right after they get drafted. Pouring into these guys. We felt like it was a successful draft based on our projections last year, but I would be willing to bet if you went and look back at the, post-weekend draft grades, they're very different than they are now when you actually have tangible evidence to apply on how those guys do in the NFL. And so I think it's best served, after the fact, but there is, there are guys that you identify and you feel good about it. And certainly last year represented that, and a lot of years have. As far as the guys that fit, I think Les talked about it earlier, the people that love football, that have a resilience, a mental toughness, a growth mindset, an ability to be able to handle the ebbs and flows, but, high character people that have humility, the right kind of energy, accountability, build it, pour into relationships and have that mental toughness. Those are the things that we're really looking for. And people that we want on board, not exclusive to players.
All right. Thank you.
Kind of a bummer way to end a press conference, huh? I mean, Les, you got to have something for them.
I was going to say nothing. I was going to say nothing, Dad. Right? That's it. The only thing I should say this, I have something to add, and it would really be nothing but on cue what a lot of people talk about in this, but Sean and I get a chance to come chat with y'all, but there's a lot of people involved in this process that's done a lot of work in personnel, starting with personnel, then flowing over to coaching as the season ends and you get into the if you call it the off-season portion of the draft. They often don't get a chance to get up here maybe, and you all see them, but they have done, I mean, if you say it, they've spent basically, their life's mission for the last 365 days, trying to figure out how to help us, Sean and I, eventually make a decision on who we want to on board as a Ram moving forward. Couldn't do it without them for sure. If we didn't have them, I know this, Gary would definitely feel the pressure, be a little nervous, hands a little sweaty, picking at 19. But because of their work, we're just ready for the opportunity, as Sean said.
All right. Thank you.
All righty.
All right.
Guys,
Thanks,
have a
guys.
good one.